Hello and welcome to Bumps in the Night. My name is Elias Blackwood, and on today's episode, we're switching gears to something different and sharing some true scary stories from Reddit. Our first story comes from Reddit user secret_excuse 7439 and is titled, I was stalked by a skinwalker. I've been thinking about this for years. Me and my family have never came up with an explanation for it, or how it could possibly be debunked. From what I can remember, I was around 8 at the time this happened, so it could have been a part of my imagination, but I highly doubt that. The story starts when me and my family had planned to stay at my grandparents' over the Christmas holidays, like we have done for years. My grandparents live in a very isolated area. They are mostly surrounded by empty fields of land my grandfather owns or other farmers near the area owns. Because of this, there weren't any parks or other kids me and my siblings could play with, and we didn't have much to entertain ourselves other than play hide and seek in the extremely overgrown grass or sit on my grandfather's tractor. One evening after we had finished dinner, we asked our grandma if we could go back outside, which she said was fine, but we must not go too deep into the fields, and if we did, to just wait until she found us. So like usual, me and my siblings were playing hide and seek before I realized I could no longer hear their footsteps, and I had gone too deep. I no longer knew where I was, but I could merely make out I was around 2 entire fields away from my siblings, and that my grandparents' house was on my far left, but I still stayed in place because I was scared of accidentally going deeper into the fields and getting into bigger trouble. Eventually, I heard another pair of footsteps. They were fast and coming from my right before I heard what sounded like my older sister call out my name. It sounded close by, but even through the thin grass, I couldn't see her. Obviously, being a child, I followed my sister's voice despite it being on the opposite direction of my grandparents' house. I followed the voice for what I can remember was close to 20 minutes. Each time her voice felt further and further away. Suddenly, while I was walking, I recognized a certain tree in the distance. It was then that I knew I was on another farmer's plot of land that I was forbidden to go into. Whatever I was following was not my sister. My sister was a stern follower of my grandparents' rules and would never dare to go out of my grandfather's land and on to another farmer's. Never in my life have I felt such a horrible feeling in my stomach. I bolted back into the direction I came. I could still hear rustling behind me. It was terrifying. I could hear that thing call out my name, but it sounded more and more sinister, like grunts, and it gurgled in between every breath. A nearby elderly couple found me after I was curled up on the floor hiding beneath the grass. They took me inside and had called my parents to tell them they had found me. It turns out all of my other siblings, including my older sister, had gone back inside, except for my little brother, and they had assumed I was still playing. What felt like 30 minutes was actually 3 entire hours. I had walked 8.5 miles and my parents were close to filing a report before I was found. Since that day, I never went back into the fields, and still when I visit, I keep far away from them. This next story is titled, The Kids on Route 47 near Hampshire, Illinois. This story comes from an anonymous source that unfortunately did not have a name, but from the post, we can conclude that he was a semi-truck driver. He writes as follows. I've been driving trucks for 20 years. I've seen my fair share of weird stuff on the road, but nothing prepared me for what happened last night on Route 47. It was past midnight. The highway was empty, the kind of empty that makes the headlights of your rig feel like a spotlight in a theater for no audience. I was halfway between towns, windows cracked for the cold, when I saw them. 2 kids, maybe 10, 12 years old. They were standing in the middle of the road like they belonged there, perfectly still. I slowed down, heart starting to pound. And as the truck rolled to a stop a few feet from them, I noticed their eyes. Completely black, not just dark, all black. No whites, nothing. Their skin was pale, almost gray under my headlights, and their clothes looked like they'd been washed 100 times, faded and thin. But it was the eyes that got me. I've never seen anything like it. I felt it in my chest before I even knew it. I knew I shouldn't, but I wanted to help, and that's when they spoke. "Can you give us a ride?" The voices were flat, monotone, too polite, almost rehearsed. My stomach dropped. The hairs on my arms stood on end. Every instinct I have, every survival alarm in my head, screamed no. I shook my head, forcing my voice to stay calm. "No, sorry, I can't." They didn't protest. They just stared. And then, for the first time, I noticed how still they were. Not a blink, not a fidget, just waiting. And my chest tightened. I turned to grab a flashlight from the cab, thinking maybe if I got a better look, I could make sense of this, get a good look at them. When I turned back, they were gone, just gone. No footprints, nothing disturbed. I stood there frozen for a long minute, flashlight trembling in my hand. Later, when I got home, I checked my dash cam footage. I wanted to see them again, maybe prove to myself I wasn't losing it. The video showed the road exactly as it had always been, empty, but the audio was far worse and clear as day. "Can you give us a ride, please?" Two tiny voices in the middle of a dead highway at midnight with nothing to be seen. I haven't been able to sleep since. I don't know who or what they were, but I'll never forget those eyes, and I'll never stop checking the back seat. This last story comes from user LGold1 and is titled "The Burned Person." They write, "Hello, this is my first time sharing my own experience and the earliest I've ever had. When I was around 4 to 7 years old, we lived somewhere in the southern part of the Philippines. It was a big old house, the kind that echoed even when you just spoke softly. My mom worked in another part of the country and only came home every 6 months, so it was just me and my nanny most of the time. The first strange thing that happened came to me in a dream. In it, there was a festival in our small district. People were parading wooden statues of the young Jesus Christ. The Philippines is a very religious country, but that dream didn't feel holy at all. It felt off. As the parade passed, one of the statues turned its head and looked straight at me. Its face changed into something hideous, smiling but angry at the same time. I remember waking up drenched in sweat, crying and shaking. I refused to sleep again after that and ended up being in the hospital for 2 days. I didn't really understand it back then, just that it felt too real. A few weeks after that, it happened again. My nanny was changing the sheets in the master bedroom. The bed was facing the door, and beside it was my mom's dressing table. It had a big mirror and a large empty space at the bottom for a chair. That space was big enough for an adult to crawl in. I was just watching her from the doorway as she fixed the left side of the bed, then walked to the right side. When she bent down to tuck the covers, someone stood up from under the dressing table. It looked like a burned person. Its skin was dark, uneven, some parts cracked like charcoal. It didn't look at me. It didn't even seem to notice me. It just helped my nanny fix the other side of the bed like it was just normal. I called out to her, but she told me to stop joking around. Still, I could see she was nervous too. After After a few minutes, the burned person kneeled back down and disappeared under the table again. Looking back now, it wasn't that tall. Maybe taller than I was as a kid, but definitely shorter than me now. The next time I saw it was in the living room. I was watching cartoons and playing with my toys at the same time. One of my toys fell beside the sofa, and when I reached down to get it, I saw it again. Closer this time. I only saw its back, but I knew it was the same burned person. My whole body froze. I ran away and left the TV on, straight to my nanny. The last time was the worst. I invited 2 of my friends over to play. We played board games, video games, and more. When we got bored, we decided to play hide and seek. One of my friends hid under the table, and I hid under the bed in the master bedroom. The same one from before. I must have fallen asleep for a few seconds. When I woke up, I just knew something wasn't right. The air felt heavier. Then I turned my head. The burned person was right there with me under the bed, staring. Its skin was black and peeling. I could see some of the red flesh underneath. It had no eyelids. I didn't understand that back then, but now I know. It was because the skin got burned away. I could see its veins on the side of its head, and it had no hair at all. It looked like Gollum, but way too human. And it was real. I think I passed out after that, because when I woke up, I was already in my room. That was the last time I ever saw it. But sometimes, strange things still happened around the house. A lady walking past the window that none of the neighbors could see, weird shadows that didn't belong to anything. Small, quiet moments that felt like someone was watching. People sometimes ask me if I believe in ghosts. I always say yes. Maybe science can't explain them yet, but I've seen enough to know they exist. That's all for today's episode. What do you make of these stories? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you would like to see us post more true and creepy stories from Reddit, please let us know. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more things that go bump in the night.